Diary of a Man in Despair. Friedrich Reck. June 1941.
I have a tenuous contact with the German embassy in Moscow, and I knew, therefore, what had to come, and what now has come. The horrible part of it is, that these people are so lost in their own inner darkness that they did not even realize what was happening. They persisted in deluding themselves with, and now he is negotiating with Russia. And their eyes, big enough for the digestion of half the world, glittered even more greedily than usual. Russia is going to let us march across its territory to get to India. German divisions are already in the Caucasus. This, at a time when grim, dark, smoke-filled clouds were already blotting out the sun in the east. Tomorrow we'll be in India. An Obersturmbannführer Semmelweis thinks of himself as viceroy over the Indians, in place of some haughty British aristocrat. Hatred of England is something that dates from the Boer War of 1899. It has a specifically mob character, and is the dominant emotion of the German masses at the moment. It is essentially a hatred of an oligarchy. The German elementary school teachers who manipulate public opinion feel insulted at the very existence of a clearly defined society of classes anywhere in the world. For example, one of their badly paid foreign correspondents, Frau Irene Seligo of the Frankfurter Zeitung, has never been able to forgive England for not according her the treatment ordinarily given an ambassador, and immediately on her arrival, whisking her off to Buckingham Palace for a reception by the King and Queen. Underneath, there is the rumbling of all the various little hidden desires. One wants to emigrate, and has his eye on an English coffee plantation. Another wants to get hold of English cloth and English tobacco to be sent home. And our experienced secretary, now the typical example of German womanhood, hopes that her fiancé in the SS will ship home the Chippendale pieces she requires to complete her four-room dream apartment. Kostja Leuchtenberg informs me that the Nazis have completed their economic planning insofar as overseas posts are concerned, and that all the openings in Nigeria, Kenya, or Southwest Africa have been filled by German engineers. Recently, I saw Janning's film, Kruger. The audience was not moved by scenes representing the camp for women prisoners, nor by the cruelties which were supposedly perpetrated on the Boer women. No, the clamor came in a court scene when an English aristocrat wearing the Order of the Garter was shown going to an audience with Queen Victoria. The hatred of the termite heap for everything not yet reduced to the size of a termite. A termite heap, this is what the industrialization of Germany has brought about. This is what the sociological ideal of the Messrs. Krupp, Tyson, Rockling, and Hoche amounts to. Oh, there are still a few people who have not been absorbed into the heap. There are the intellectuals, once the best part of Germany and now barely 3% of the population. There are the farmers, a sociological anchor to windward in any epoch, who have not let themselves be fooled, no matter what the propaganda, and who know that they are threatened by the industrial penetration of the flatlands advocated by Rockling. There is also Bavaria, once considered the cradle of the movement, which long since put a fence between it and Nazism, and now hold itself as much apart as the Vendée during the French Revolution. Towards the end of March, as German tank columns were rolling southwest down the wide Wiener Chaussee highway on their way to punish Serbia by throttling a little country, I saw an old farmer standing at the side of the road. Each time a tank rumbled by, the old man spat forcefully. When Hess flew to England, there was widespread rejoicing among the villagers because, as they said, the Crown Prince got out, signifying that he had left because he knew the game was up, and was getting out while he could. But these elements, the intellectuals, the farmers, and the Bavarians are, of course, all that has survived of the old Germany. The majority, that vast termite heap, was dreaming about a bargain between Germany and Russia at a time when the first shots were already being fired in the east. Nobody here had any idea of the real situation. Never did a people tumble more helplessly, more stupidly into catastrophe. And never was a people so badly, so irresponsibly led. Schulenberg, highly esteemed as a gentleman of the old school in Moscow, tried last winter after Molotov's trip to Berlin to warn against an attack, but Hitler would not even receive him. Kostring, the military attaché, was roared at by Hitler, and called a Russophile because he pleaded the urgent necessity of correctly assessing the Red Army. The barometer obstinately refused to register clear and fine, so they smashed it. I can remember as a boy listening to discussions of general staff officers who came to our house. With what care these men of the old von Moltke school approached the problem called Russia. But the general staff men of today were trained in Ludendorff's school. They are still planning in terms of the First World War. With the arrogance of their dead mentor, they are counting on a promenade militaire. And the German industrialists are planning to swamp Russia with cheap radios and consumer goods. The Russian people are to be bribed with the promise of electrification and cheap, mass-produced consumer goods. The man of the vast stretches of the Volga steppes, this enigma, who will always be completely beyond the understanding of a West German, who specifically wants his own Russian system and who, above all, wants not to become like the West, this man is now equated to a German by our brilliant businessmen. This stupid, arrogant view of the Russians as Hottentots to be bribed with trinkets and cast-off top hats is the first basic mistake. The second is the incredible underestimation of the distances involved. At the time of my visit to Russia 10 years ago there were villages in the northern Urals and the Pechora River basin which had still, 14 years after the November Revolution, not heard of the fall of the Tsar, in fact, did not even know that there had been a world war. But worst of all is the underestimation of the strange Slavic soul, only now beginning to be awakened, still haunted by awful nightmares. Never will I forget the comment made in St. Petersburg in 1912 by a Russian farmer newly come to town on seeing an aeroplane take off for the first time in his life. Most likely, he gets 30 rubles a month, at most 35. 35 rubles a month, and for that he dares deny God. German technocrats who put this utterance down as belonging to a primitive do not understand. But they will meet this peasant in the vast Hyperborean stretches of Russia, and then they will find what was not dreamed of in their philosophy, the demon world of a people which is really young, not as a phrase in propaganda, but which has not, despite everything, let go of its gods. I talked about this last Easter Sunday with Kostya Luktenberg, who came back from the Rand mines 2 years ago, and who, as a native Russian, knows that world as he knows the West. He agreed that with this war we come at last to that moment in history when for the first time the Slavic world directly confronts the Western. Despite the constant talk here, through Hitler's mouth, of destiny and the all-powerful, this Germany is as cynical as only an aging Western nation can be. Russia, on the other hand, which 24 years ago took up its cross and for the sake of distant goals has suffered, frozen, and gone hungry, is like that blasphemer I described earlier who in Dostoevsky's words is closer to God than the skeptic. Yesterday, at the dawn of a burning hot day, I turned the knob on my radio and to my surprise heard Herr Goebbels declaring war on yesterday's allies. I turned away, deeply affected. It is entirely possible that the war now beginning will engulf me, my worldly goods, my physical life, and my children as well. It is entirely possible, also, that I myself will be pulled by the eddies from this latest stroke of Hitler's genius, and dragged down. Nevertheless, my first reaction was wild jubilation. I have never ceased to believe in the core of this people, deep as this has been hidden away, by now scarcely discernible. This nation is about to take a great and salutary reducing course which will free it of its ugliness, and teach it, at a cost of what may well be immense suffering, to believe in other gods than the unholy trinity of Krupp, Rockling, and the cheap radio. In their immense vanity, Satan's own have overreached themselves, and now they are in the net, and they will never free themselves again. That is the fact, and this it is that rejoices my heart. I hate you. I hate you waking and sleeping, I hate you for undoing men's souls, and for spoiling their lives, I hate you as the sworn enemy of the laughter of men. Oh, it is God's deadly enemy which I see, and hate, in you. In every one of your speeches you make a mockery of the spirit, which you have silenced, and you forget that the private thought, the thought born in sorrow and loneliness, can be more deadly than all your implements of torture. You threaten all who oppose you with death, but you forget, our hatred is a deadly poison. It will creep into your blood, and we will die shouting with joy when our hate pulls you down with us into the depths. Let my life be fulfilled in this way, and let my death come when this task is completed. This promise has come out of the heart of the people you are now striking, and I set it down, at this moment, since it applies to you as well as to us. If you banish God from the earth, we will meet him under the earth. And then we, the underground men, will sing a song to God, who is joy.